What's up guys, it's the Tominator, and just a heads up that this will probably be my final video previewing the 2018 Mr. Olympia, since I've already made my predictions for the men's open and classic physique divisions, and at this point I frankly don't have much else to say until the show goes down. So yeah, I know my channel's been pretty quiet these last few weeks, and I apologize for the lack of content, but rest assured that this is just the calm before the storm, okay? Because I plan on pumping out a ton of videos in the aftermath of the Olympia. But anyway, on to the topic at hand here, and that is the 212 division, or more specifically, the top bodybuilders in this category to look out for at the Mr. Olympia. And first up, we have none other than Kamal Al Garni, who of course should be seen as a serious contender given that he won the Arnold Classic in Ohio back in March. Now, this dude brought some tremendous conditioning, and that's really what enabled him to fend off several more experienced pros like Charles Dixon, David Henrie, and Jose Raymond. I mean, he was just razor sharp with an excellent midsection, and from the back, this picture doesn't even begin to do it justice, because I remember while reviewing this contest thinking that this guy's back double bicep really resembled the great Dorian Yates, just in terms of the hardness and all the incredible detail throughout the entire back. So I actually think he's going to give everybody a run for their money in this one. Now from the side, he's also thickly built and nice and full through the pecs. His weakest mandatory, I think, was ironically his rear lat spread, which for some reason just didn't seem to flare out very much. So there was a vast and jarring discrepancy between his two back poses, where the back double bicep was amazing and the rear lat spread was very subpar. But I think that was just a flaw in his posing technique, where he maybe rounded his back too much. But in any case, if he manages to correct that mistake and brings the same level of conditioning in 2 weeks' time that we saw at the Arnold, Kamal will be very dangerous out there, and probably a top 5 or 6 contender. Up next, we have Nicolas Bully out from Switzerland. I find him very impressive. You can see the tremendous thickness he brings here in the side chest, through the delts, the arms, and thighs with that crazy hamstring sweep down there. He kind of reminds me of a Lee Priest or Rolly Winkler, and that he's not the tallest bodybuilder out there, but man, does he pack a ton of freaky round muscle on that frame. And no disrespect to the champ, but these guns right here should give even Flex Lewis a run for his money when it comes to who has the best set of arms in 212. This kid really made a name for himself, I think, a couple months ago at the Portugal Pro when he held his own against the always formidable Hattie Chupan. Now, it's true that he wasn't quite on the same level, but just to be able to stand next to one of the very best versions of Hattie that we'd ever seen and not get completely blown away is pretty impressive in its own right. Here's a front double, and I just love the way he hits this one with a slight tilt. It kind of gives it a little bit of an old school aesthetic feel, and he really looks great in it from head to toe. The arms once again go without saying, but the waist and lower body are also top class. His biggest weak points, in my opinion, are probably his structure and his posing. Now, his legs from the rear can sometimes appear too short for his body, so that's a little off-putting, and there's nothing he can do about that. And while he does look surprisingly wide in the lat spread, his back double biceps leaves his lower back looking disappointingly shallow, and he could also be more effective in the side triceps, given all that he's got to work with in that department. But still, I count Bully out as one of the top new 212 competitors to watch out for this September, and wouldn't be surprised at all to see him land somewhere in or around the top 6. And speaking of impressive new talents, how about Derrick Lunsford? Holy cow, this kid has amazing proportions and structure. To my eyes, from what I've seen so far, he looks almost perfectly balanced. It'll really be refreshing to see a proper vacuum pose in this division too, so hopefully he'll hit this one on the left for us come game day. Now, unlike Nicolas, Derrick did compete last year in 2017, where he only managed to take 5th, but it's important to remember that this was his very first Mr. Olympia appearance, and from the looks of it, he's already made immense improvements since then, so I expect him to do a little better this time around. I mean, Buddy's back is ridiculous now. If it looks anything remotely like this come contest time, I would be concerned for everybody else in this division. And it would be awesome to see how this back double bicep measures up to the likes of Flex Lewis or Kamal Al Garni. The thickness here is off the charts, and I don't think anybody's beating that rear lat spread. Here's a more recent shot where the lower body's dialed in, and holy crap, man, this dude means business. If shows are won from the back, then Derrick Lunsford has to be considered a frontrunner at this point. I wouldn't be surprised to see him jump up to the top 3 if these pictures are any indication. Plus, one more point in his favor is that Ben Pakulski is his trainer. Now, you might not know this, but Ben's a former open division Olympia bodybuilder and a friggin' genius in the gym when it comes to knowing how the body functions and how to isolate the muscles to achieve that peak contraction and really get the most out of every rep. Now, I've watched some of his training tips in the past, and Big Ben was just dropping knowledge out there about things I'd never even heard of before, like how in order to fully contract the biceps, you need to bring your hand up and back towards your head using a cable, and for triceps to likewise bring the elbow back behind the body. So he just gets very scientific about the whole biomechanics of it all, and I think that having someone like that in your corner can only help your chances. Ahmed Kanani is another big name who cannot be overlooked. He took runner-up last year and is one of the most massive and complete bodybuilders in 212 today. His biggest strengths, I would say, are his width through the lats and his hamstrings, which are insanely full, as we see right here. There's that Rolly-esque width I was just mentioning in the front relaxed pose, which really gives him an imposing stature, especially standing next to narrower bodybuilders like Flex Lewis. And from the rear, you can see the exceptional V-taper he brings that is arguably the best in his class. One thing I would like to see from Kanani this year would be for him to kind of fine-tune his conditioning a bit, because last year we weren't seeing that super sharp separation like we have seen from his Middle Eastern contemporary, Hadi Choopan, for instance. So I think that's one area where he can show improvement. And it's important to note, though, that this guy won the 2017 Arnold Classic 212 as well, so he's definitely made his mark and cemented his status as a frontrunner going into this show. So I would be surprised to see him fall outside the top 3. You can see from the side here, when he's ripped, he's a powerhouse out there. As a bigger guy, he is a bit on the blockier side, though. But then again, they clearly don't count aesthetics for much in this class, as being massive and blocky never stopped someone like Jose Raymond from doing damage all these years. But of course, we have to mention the reigning 6-time champion, James Flex Lewis, who has announced that this will be his final time competing in the 212 division. And I don't really blame the guy, as he already holds the record by a long shot, and there's no real way he can improve his physique anymore at his current weight. Now, given his track record, Flex Lewis is the obvious favorite to win this competition and repeat for a 7th straight year, and that's exactly what I expect him to do. I'd be very surprised if he didn't win in 2018 because he's just so consistent and complete. He's very much like a smaller version of Phil Heath in that sense, and also in terms of the round muscle bellies and the total body development. He's got easily, I'd say, the best set of calves and probably the best forearms in the lineup, and so all these other guys are going to be hard-pressed to beat the complete package that he offers. Now, people will point out that he's narrow, and certainly that is a weakness that his competitors can exploit, but just like Phil, he makes up for it with detail, and lots of it, especially from the rear. As we can see here, all the tie-ins through the back and the glutes and the hams. So, like I said, I do think Flex will likely repeat this year, especially considering that this will be his final stint in the 212 division. I just don't see the IFBB politically allowing someone to defeat him this year, unless it's just blatantly obvious that he doesn't deserve it. So yeah, those are the top guys in 212 that I'm looking forward to seeing. Not saying that they will be your top 5 or 6, though, because you never know. And, you know, that's not to discount other big names like David Henrie and Jose Raymond, 2 longtime veterans who've been competing at a high level for over a decade now. And it's not to dismiss someone like Sean Clarita either, who many people say is like a mini Phil Heath in terms of the roundness factor and the excellent back development. Although personally, I think that's far too flattering of a comparison. I mean, there's levels to this shit, guys, okay? So there is no doubt, though, that this guy has some impressive tools in his arsenal. And it's also not to forget about Charles Tank Dixon, who has enough quality mass to hang with the best of them. And lastly, we certainly can't overlook the possible appearance of Hadi Choopan, who, in my opinion, if he is able to actually compete, I think would be the automatic number 2 and the biggest threat when it comes to dethroning Flex Lewis. But as many of you are well aware, Hadi has had trouble entering the United States ever since Donald Trump declared that travel ban, and last I've heard, nothing has changed on that front, so I don't expect him to be there, unfortunately. And it's really too bad, because Hadi's kind of like the 212 Kai Green, almost. Not in terms of the physique or posing or anything like that, but just in terms of being that guy, to really push the champ and have the best chance to knock him off, yet for various logistical reasons to not actually compete at the show, to the disappointment of countless fans around the world, including myself. So it's almost tragic, really, because this lineup is already great, but it would be absolutely epic with the addition of Hadi Choopan. Alright, but that's all for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts on the 212 division in the comments below. And stay tuned in the coming weeks, because like I said, I plan to release a lot of content following the 2018 Mr. Olympia, so feel free to like and subscribe if you want to keep on top of all that. But until next time, I'm the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.